PlayStation 5 is failing compared to the PlayStation 4. This is a very strange talking point I've seen on the internet over the course of this weekend that I kind of want to address because I do find it interesting. I mean, brick for brick, point for point, right now, Sony is completely kicking butt. The PlayStation 5 is selling some record-breaking numbers. Their profits are incredibly high. But what about just us as gamers? Is PlayStation doing better or worse than they were the previous generation? Let's talk about that. What's up, gamers? Dreamcastguy here. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, we're only going to be comparing PlayStation to themselves because, quite frankly, if we compared them to Xbox, it would be a slaughter. I think we can all admit the Xbox One generation did not exactly have a ton of games, and the Xbox Series X has pretty much not really any major exclusives yet. Now, I'm actually inspired today by this interesting chart made by Zubitech. He does all sorts of cool breakdowns and graphic art to sort of explain visually different comparisons relating to PlayStation. And I saw a lot of people basically saying, this is a huge drop. The PlayStation 5 needs to pick up the pace because people are getting fed up. Now, I actually saw quite a people really reflecting this sentiment. So I wanted to take a look at the start here, his charts. I decided to download them so we could get them in nice HD. So you can see here, I can actually scroll them and this stuff. This is PlayStation 4 over the course of its entire generation. Technically the PlayStation 4 is still getting some indie games and stuff, but at this point, it is the PlayStation 5 generation. The PS5 is now current gen. This is now last gen. Now, at the very bottom of the chart, he explains the reasoning of this. This is all Sony Entertainment games that are either published by Sony themselves, their owned IP, second-party games, which means like companies making stuff for Sony, even though technically it wasn't made by Sony. It also includes remasters and timed console exclusives. Now, that sounds generous, but let's actually take a look at this. It seems like a pretty hefty chart. This was when it launched. Killzone Shadowfall, people didn't exactly love. Then we got Knack, the greatest game of all time. Obviously, Knack and Knack 2. Infamous Second Son, the DLC First Light. I actually forgot how fast that came out. Last of Us Remastered, Little Big Planet. To be quite honest, now looking back on it, the first 2 years of the PlayStation 4 were not incredibly poppin'. It was selling systems for sure, but this is a lot of games that to me were not super spectacular. I was a huge fan actually of Infamous Second Son, and even more so of its DLC. But here, 2015 is when things really started to kick off. The Order 1886, Bloodborne, one of the best games ever made, Helldivers, a personal favorite of mine, Gravity Rush, Until Dawn. It just keeps getting better and better. Look at this. Uncharted 4, Ratchet and Clank, which was like the remake that restarted the timeline. The Last Guardian, finally coming out after 10 years of development. Then we started to see the launch of the PlayStation VR. So we started to see some VR games here like Drive Club VR, Stardust VR, Until Dawn, Rush of Blood. And what's interesting to me, though, is that this chart does include a lot of financial flops. I think a lot of times when people are talking about the PlayStation 4 generation, they forget that a lot of these games, while we look back on them as these big, cool titles, some of these pretty much destroyed studios. Like Matterfall, this game was like a weird game by Housemarque. I don't hate it, but the game was a big dump. Uncharted, this is that great Lost Legacy, love that a bunch. But here, Gravity Rush 2, this game sold so poorly, they closed the studio that made it. That was an actual Sony studio game, and it's just gone. Now, some of this stuff, huge hits. Some of the stuff I feel like they're kind of padding this chart out. Like, okay, we got, where is Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition? The Wipeout collection. I kind of wish he had not put these collections in here because it kind of does blow the chart up a little bit. Shadow of the Colossus remake, freaking Spider-Man 2018, a personal favorite of mine. But really my point here is the fact that, look at this. These are iconic games that sold a lot of PlayStation 4s. God of War, love that freaking game. Obviously, scrolling down here, Days Gone, which, I mean, is probably never going to get a sequel, but it was a huge system seller. Death Stranding, Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Last of Us Part 2. These are games that were massive successes for Sony themselves. But then you jump over to the PlayStation 5 generation. This is it. We are now on year 3. It is baffling how tiny this chart is, to be quite honest. Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man Remastered, Astro's Playroom, Sackboy's Big Adventure, Demon's Souls, Death Stranding Remastered, the Director's Cut, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, Returnal, which is a 10 out of 10 in my opinion, Ratchet & Clank, it's a 10 out of 10, Uncharted Collection, Neo Collection, Horizon Forbidden West, that's a great game, Gran Turismo, great game. Putting DLC on this, though, I think this actually shows just how starved we are for big games. Like, look, Returnal Ascension is a good update, it's a good patch, but to act like that's a separate game is a weird choice. And they do that again here. Horizon Forbidden West Burning Shores, that is some very good DLC. I mean, I absolutely loved it, to be quite honest, but putting it as a separate line here is strange. And we also have a bunch of games here that don't have release dates. Stella Blade, Helldivers 2, Spider-Man 2, which doesn't even have box art or a release date, Horizon Call of the Mountain. I guess my thing is that I'm not against the idea that Sony is taking longer to make games. Obviously, we know that these things take a lot of time in the oven. These are bigger games that are more beautiful, that have more playtime. I understand that longer dev cycle, but it does feel weird to actually look at it and realize how much of a trickle we're down to. I mean, there is a lot of top secret projects. We actually have heard some confirmation that there is a lot more games coming, but it's kind of baffling to me that this is not actually hurting the success of the PlayStation 5. Like, this is a sales chart overlaying PlayStation 4 sales to PlayStation 5 sales. The PS5 is really doing well. The PlayStation 5 is actually right here, the PlayStation 4. The PS5 was outselling the PS4 on a month-by-month basis for a bit. Right now, the PlayStation 4 on the same timeline was actually ahead. Look at this. I do think the PlayStation 5 is going to end up surpassing the global total sales of the PlayStation 4, but I think they have shifted focus, and I guess that comes down to the diversity of tactics. I do kind of think that this is part of what's kind of making people grumble. Is it definitely feels like PlayStation wants to try and do more servicey style things. They have talked about the fact that they're going to be making 10 total games as a service projects. We do know that some of them are having some development troubles, like The Last of Us multiplayer. I made a video about that on Friday. But look at this. This is currently the PlayStation Plus sales numbers. They've said this has great receptions of the new service. It just launched, obviously, middle of last year. The new PlayStation Plus. A lot of people, 8 million premium subscribers is insane. This is people paying $16 a month. These are the people paying $12 a month. I think PlayStation realizes that they can make just as much cash in the long run by making good ass games, dropping them for $70, waiting for third-party companies to step in. Like, it's weird that Final Fantasy 16 isn't on here. Final Fantasy 16 obviously is going to sell a lot of consoles. It's selling a lot of PlayStation 5s right now. I will say, as a gamer, somebody that doesn't have Sony stock or anything like that, I am a little bit let down just because looking back on it now, I think I enjoyed the PlayStation 4 generation as one of my favorite console generations ever, and it was because of that frequency. It was wild that Sony was just cranking out games. Contract, deal, release, hype trailer, next announcement, PlayStation Showcase, here's the next game, here's the next DLC, here's the next update. Whereas when you compare it to the trickle we're getting with PlayStation 5, it's strange. I mean, their profitability is up, so I think Sony is going to stick with this game plan, but I do agree with the people that are saying, I want more. I want even more of the glorious PlayStation games. I think PlayStation exclusives for the last couple of years have been some of my very favorite games. I just wish they could figure out what it takes, what deals to do, what subsidiary studios can help increase development speed. Because quality, they've nailed it. Pacing, that's where I do feel like they could improve themselves. But what do you guys think? Are you happy with the PlayStation 5 as it currently exists, or do you match my concerns? I wish that we were getting more stuff, but that's not a hate, that's a criticism. A loving criticism. Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big old thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. All right, time to go and edit my Street Fighter 6 review. Tomorrow, there's a Street Fighter 6 review and a Diablo 4 review, and both of them are very long and very in-depth, so please watch those. I also just posted a System Shock review. It has been a crazy week of secret gaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.